Welcome. We're going to pause for a moment as we welcome everyone into the webinar today. Welcome. My name is Noemi Guevara, and it's my pleasure as the Director of Alumni Engagement to welcome you to our next edition of our 49er Industry Chat. Before we start, I would like to let you know this session is being recorded and it will live on our website at csulb.edu/alumni. We also encourage you to use our Q&A box located at the bottom of your screen to submit any questions for our guest speaker today. And now I would like to introduce our moderator for the chat. Lucia Cost earned her degree in Spanish in 1975. She was recognized as a distinguished alumna in 2005 and now serves as a member of the CSULB Alumni Council. Lucia, thank you so much for moderating the chat, and I turn it over to you.
Great. Well, today's speaker received a Master of Fine Arts from Cal State Long Beach after earning a Bachelor of Fine Arts from Youngstown State University in Ohio. And at both universities, he majored in sculpture and minored in photography. He was teaching and creating art when presented with an opportunity to join the Walt Disney Company. After a 30-plus year with them, he took the, in Imagineering, he ended up retiring after with, I totally screwed this up. So he had the opportunity to join Walt Disney Company, and after a 30-plus year stint, as an executive producer and creator director, he did retire from the company. But in his final project, he was responsible for the design, development, and execution of the main entrance of Shanghai Disneyland. I also found out, Larry, that you actually lived in China for a bit while you were doing this. So we'd like to hear about that as well. He continued creating and exhibiting his own art during his Disney tenure, including a commission for a 17-foot tall outdoor sculpture in Burbank. He currently lives in Los Angeles with his wife, and he maintains a studio in their home, where he continues to work on new sculpture ideas. Hosting today's industry chat, please welcome a very proud CSULB alum, Larry A. Davis, AKA L.A. Davis.
Well, thank you, Lucia. I'm happy to be here representing Long Beach State. I have nothing but fond memories of my experience at the university, and I've taken away so much from it. It is largely responsible for my success in the industry. I do want to say that I'll probably be speaking very quickly today because I have a lot I want to cover in a short period of time. And yet I offer any questions to be answered as they come up. So, Lucia, anytime a question comes up, just feel free to interrupt.
Okay.
But in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and start my presentation by sharing my screen. And I have to start with a little backstory because the backstory, although it's a very long backstory, I'm going to make it real short because elements from that backstory weave themselves throughout my entire career and also the time that I spent at Long Beach State. So let me share my screen and see how we do here. Okay, we're going to go here. I'm going to go share, and we're going to start right at the beginning, and we're going to do, let's see, how to figure out how to do this. I have got to figure out how to play. There we go. Okay, so I grew up in a small town in Ohio, Salem. I grew up wanting to play drums, so I took drum lessons. I learned how to play drums, and I was a biology and chemistry nut. So I had a laboratory in my parents' basement, and I was always dissecting animals that I found in the woods. And then around the time the British invasion happened and the Beatles were on the Ed Sullivan Show, I got bit by the music bug. And being a drummer, I joined forces with a good friend of mine who was taking guitar lessons, and we formed a band. We called ourselves the Sound Barrier. And that's kind of the initial backstory. I had love for biology. I had a love for music. joined this band. We were becoming very successful in the area. And one of the band members was older than the rest, graduated from high school before the rest of us, and wanted to keep the band together because we were very popular and playing a lot. And so he went to the closest big city to university, which was Youngstown, which is about 20 miles north of where Salem is. And so Terry went off 1 year, and then the next year, the rest of the band followed. And I started as a biology major because that was my love. I love biology. I'd never taken art classes at the time. So we're going to show you some photos. So this is the sound barrier, one of our promos. This is probably when I was in 10th or 11th grade, high school. Our first record was on the radio when we were in 8th grade. By the time we were sophomores in high school, we had our second record on the radio. This is the record sleeve for, at that time, we were doing 45 RPMs. Yes, Lucia.
Larry, which one are you? I can't make that.
I'm the guy sitting in the grass down at the bottom.
Okay.
That's me. Yeah, I've changed a little since then.
Just a little.
Just a little, yeah. So this was our second record. This is us playing live. Of course, you can't quite see me there because I guess our image is over top of that. But Terry, the one in the middle, was the bass player who went off before the rest of us. And what happened was we all went off to college. The next year, the rest of us went off and we started at YSU. And again, I was a biology major, but being a naive first-year student, I didn't sign up for classes soon enough. It was late, and so I couldn't get any of the general requirements. So my first semester at school, I was taking calculus, organic chemistry, physics. You know, it was insane, and the band was playing 5 nights a week. So needless to say, didn't work out too well. So rather than flunk out of school, I decided to drop out of school. So I left college, and I was sure I was going to be a rock star anyway, so I wasn't going to really need a real job, and why would I continue on in college? Well, then a couple members of the band left, so the band changed, and then the next thing you knew, we were reforming, and we had a whole different band, and we were doing all originals, and our booking agent was booking us in all these clubs. Was the clubs we were playing in wanted to hear what was on the radio, and we weren't playing that. We were playing our own stuff. So we started having less and less jobs through this agency, and so I started finding myself free time. And a couple of friends said, hey, there's an art show up in Cleveland at the Cleveland Art Museum. Are you interested? And I said, sure, let's go. And so went up and I saw a Salvador Dali exhibit. And it really sort of inspired me. And I said, whoa, well, this is kind of cool artwork, and maybe I could do something like this. So I went and got a set of paints and some paintbrushes and started painting. And I had a couple of my friends said, you know, now the band was playing less and less, and I had more and more time. Said, hey, you're pretty good. Maybe you should take an art class. And I thought, well, yeah, maybe I will. So I went back, and a friend had been taking art appreciation at YSU. I took that, and it opened up all these other avenues of creativity. And it's like, okay, then I took a drawing class, and then I took a painting class. And so then I basically registered full-time back as a fine art major. And that's kind of the transition from biology to fine art. And at the same time, the band was really kind of winding down. And so I started focusing more on my art. Yes, Lucia.
Hey, Larry, that don't you think it's interesting that there is a connection between the sciences and arts?
Oh, of course there is. Yeah, that's what you'll see as I continue on through my presentation here, that what I learned in the sciences, and even just the imagery and the shapes and how some of my artwork evolved through the years, there's a lot of biology influences in there. You can see it. So that's a good segue to the first sculpture pieces that I did. And these were a little crude. I cringe a little when I see them now. They're bulbous shapes. They're not clearly defined. The one on the left is about 5 feet tall. The one on the right is about 6 feet tall. It was more about learning how to work with materials. So I was working with wood for the first time, and I was stack laminating it and gluing it and then grinding it and forming these shapes. But it got me really fascinated with working dimensionally. I found that I worked very well dimensionally. So then I learned how to weld. So I went to the junkyard and got some car bumpers, and I cut them up and welded these car bumpers back, and then interjected wood throughout. So we had a combination of wood and metal in the same piece. And this again was another exploration of materials and shapes for me. So then, after I received my Bachelor of Fine Arts degree, now that's the backstory. That's about as far as I can get from the backstory. From Youngstown State University. Then I was on the road heading toward California because I had been accepted in that Long Beach State's graduate program. Problem was I didn't have any money. I didn't have money to pay for school. I didn't have money to live on. And I had a good friend who had moved to Long Beach who said, look, he'd rent me a room until I got my feet on the ground. So I moved there. He rented me a room and I immediately went out in search of a job. And I was fortunate enough at that time, McDonnell Douglas was hiring. So I got a job building DC-10s at McDonnell Douglas. And I started off on the night shift, as anyone new to the organization would, which worked out fine for me because I wanted to take classes during the day. It was a pretty amazing experience. And one of the things that I hadn't counted on, but turned out to be huge in my career path, I was immediately put into what they called aerospace, structural engineering class. And I learned how to read blueprints. And learning how to read blueprints became essential in my job with Disney. Almost every aspect of that job required you to not only be able to read them, but to understand them, to interpret them, and to input into them. So it was very, very instrumental. So I loved all the different parts and pieces, and some of this influenced some of my artwork too. So I had the biology background, and I had this high-tech background, and all of it sort of ended up into my art in one way or another. Well, so while I was on the night shift, I got an opportunity to take an apprenticeship at Long Beach State with a gentleman by the name of John Nyquist. Now, John Nyquist is and still is a master furniture maker and very highly regarded in the industry. And so I worked in his shop and learned things that I never knew about wood. This was working with fine exotic hardwoods. Yes, Lucia.
How did you make the connection with him? Through the university?
Through the university, yes, because when I first moved to California, it was in the summer, and I got the job with McDonnell Douglas, and the university offered this apprenticeship to some select graduate students. And as soon as I got into the school and I got sort of set up and told them that I was going to be working on the night shift, but I was available for day classes in the summer. They offered this up as a possibility. So I just said, oh yeah.
No, but that's good for some of the students that may be listening, as well as some of the younger alum.
Oh yeah, for sure.
The way the connections just come up.
It did, it just happened. And I'm so glad I learned so much about hand carving. He hand carves dovetail joints. I mean, planing and joining wood. I helped John with this dining room set. Now, I can't take any credit for the designs. This is John Nyquist furniture. But I did a lot of the rough cutting, I did a lot of the sanding, and I did a lot of the finishing. So it was amazing. And then I got an opportunity to take, I wanted to take a night class. Bronze casting was the first class that I wanted to take, and it was only offered at night. So I got switched, and this was another thing that McDonnell Douglas did. They worked around my school. They allowed me to work days, and then I got a night shift. So this is my first attempt at learning about the bronze casting process, and it starts with clay. So this was me making a clay form, a little more definition than some of the earlier bulba shapes, but still very organic. Then it was all about the mold making process. So again, every step of the way, I'm learning something new from my tool bag. So this was a latex mold that basically by coating latex on top of my clay, I created a fairly thick, flexible mold. Then by doing parting divides, called registration divides, you poured plaster in here and you got a plaster backup mold. So now you had plaster mold and a rubber mold, peeled the rubber off, put the rubber back into the plaster, strapped it together, and then poured molten wax inside of it. And by slurring that around, dumping it out, then you do it 2, 3, 4 times. Now you get a thin layer. And so the piece that was clay is now wax, but it's hollow. And then you use what's called a spruing and gating system. These are all wax. Everything you see there, the red is all wax. These are feeders to feed the molten bronze into the piece. You do a cup because that's your pouring cup. Then you dip it into colloidal silica. You cut it with silica sand, building up this thick coat around the outside of everything. And then we talk about a kiln that was created by the graduate department chair, Howard Hitchcock. He's an amazing sculptor himself and a good friend of mine now. He had designed and built this kiln for doing a specific ceramic shell casting process. And the class was taught part-time instructor Claire Graham, who taught the nighttime class. So here I am with Claire. We are lowering down this kiln onto the pieces that will eventually, now what we've done, we've cut the bottom off of the shell, turned them upside down, put them over top of a sheet with holes in it. As soon as we put this kiln on, it's 1500 degrees, it flashes the wax, it all melts and runs down into a big vessel at the bottom. And then it also, at the same time, it melts out the wax, it's hardening the shell, it becomes a ceramic shell. Yes.
That looks like a homemade kiln, is it?
It is, and that's why I say Howard Hitchcock actually made this himself out of a 50-gallon drum. And he lined it with the right kind of bricks, and yeah, pretty amazing.
So it sounds like all along on everything, and I'm sure it'll continue, you're learning the tricks of your now trade because this is adding to your expertise.
Exactly. And, you know, the other thing about this, it's important, I became Claire's right-hand man because not everybody wanted to participate to the level that I did. Every step of the way, I just jumped in. I want to learn this. I want to learn that. I'm going to help you with this. And a lot of this was very physical in nature too, as you'll see in the next slide. I mean, lifting the crucible of molten, you know, bronze out is heavy. And so, you know, a lot of people weren't equipped to do that. I was. And so this is us in the right. You can't see it again because the images are over top of it, but we're pouring the molten bronze into some of the smaller pieces. And then this is me pouring the molten bronze into my first bronze piece. So then once that gets all set up and cooled down, then you literally break off the shell. So you only get one chance on this one. When you break off the shell, then you're back to square one. And now that whole thing is bronze. Then you use a cutoff wheel, you cut all the feeders off and you release the piece in the middle of it. And then this is the final piece that I finished. So my first bronze piece, a lot of sanding, polishing and stuff to get it to that. So then I really loved that. I wanted to combine. So I did a piece that had more texture and I patinaed it. And I went back to my stack laminated wood and did a joinery. And I also created a hollow cube at the bottom. Well, it's a rectilinear hollow box that I filled with concrete and rebar that goes up into the bronze because it's leaning off to the side, it's cantilevered out. So that helped to balance it out. So part of that was engineering for me. Then I started doing some more functional art, furniture pieces. This was a table lamp combination. I cast the metal parts in bronze and the wood is teak. Then this goes back to my biology references too. I did what I called my anatomical series where I combined wood and bronze, created a number of different types of shapes and different types of materials. Another table and chair that I created. And you can see how the bronze flows into the wood and the texture. And then this was one where we did molds of everyone's face. So Claire's, I did a mold of his face. He's casting bronze on the left. My other friend David is casting bronze on the right. And my face is in acrylic resin. And then.
Larry?
Yes.
Yeah, I know we can come back to this, but we've got a couple questions that might kind of get you to segue because
okay.
One of them is what inspires you? What influences do you see weaved into your sculpture work?
Well, I think, again, I go back to my biology days. A lot of biological references weave themselves into them. And some of the surrealism, you know, from the Salvador Dali stuff too, you know, although his is 2D and mine becomes more 3D. I think those find themselves in there a lot. Engineering wise, you know, that might go back to my McDonnell Douglas days, you know, so in tune with trying to figure out how to do things. I was always interested in the challenge of combining unlike materials, for example. You'll see that in a lot of my other work too.
And I know you're going to show us some pictures because I did go on your website as an artist and see how some of the biology and the science fits into some of that sculpture. Another question we can hold on because it's probably in your segue because people are interested in what you did at Disney.
Of course.
So I'll let you kind of move on and segue into that.
Okay, we're closing in on it.
Okay.
So John Snitticor was my graduate program advisor and really helped me along the way too. He was also another talented woodworker, and I learned a lot from him and helped me with my thesis. So for my thesis, I decided to go back and pull in my music background. I decided I was going to make a set of sculptural drums. So this was a crude clay model that I made, kind of the way I saw the drums, as these shells that instead of just cylindrical came down and flared out almost like the petals of the flower. and that helps to direct the sound out. So this then is the final set of drums. They're made out of a hardwood called mbuya from Africa. The stands are cast in bronze and they're all adjustable up and down and they pivot. And then the rims I also made in bronze. This is a younger me giving a performance at my master show at Long Beach State. And then I had opportunities in several art shows after that to perform again on them. So that was, again, kind of going full circle, you know, bringing the music into the art. You know, again, so sort of organic, biological type shapes for the drums.
So do you still have those?
I do. They're sort of packed away. I had a couple people interested in purchasing them, but that never came to fruition. I'd love to actually, you know, find a home for them other than packed away here in my loft, but it's okay.
Okay.
Okay, so now I got my MFA at Long Beach State in 1983, and I was teaching too. I had taught, I think, my last 2 years while I was attending graduate school there. It took me a while to get through school because I was working and teaching, or working and going to school at the same time. And teaching was part of it. And then it turned out that Mr. Claire Graham, who was teaching the bronze casting class, was also happened to be running the Disneyland Entertainment Art Department. And Claire started throwing freelance my way. Like I said, he and I became his right-hand man on the job, and we became really good friends, and he offered me a full-time position then. And so now it was really a fork in the road for me because I was probably next in line for a full-time position teaching at Long Beach State. And that was kind of what I was working toward. And yet I thought, well, I already have my master's degree now, my Master of Fine Arts degree, so I can always go back to teaching. But this opportunity to go to Disney may only come around once. So it did, and I grabbed it.
I just want to remark again for those that are listening that you really have a very organic, not approach, because a lot of this you didn't know, but it's very organic the way you move through, and you meet the right people at the right time.
Yeah, and you know, a lot of it is, I think, chance, fate, luck, maybe. But
also seeing it, right?
You're right. And so, you know, at this fork in the road, this is one of the things that I would say to, especially the newer people that are entering into the workforce, to, you know, as you move through your career, you will have opportunities to change course, to take a left turn or a right turn and go a different direction. And don't discount that, you know, you at least have to consider it. And in this case, I considered it and I weighed the options. I said, you know what, I think I'm going to try this and see what happens. So I did. And what we did was, one of the things I learned, really important thing, was about teamwork, because I was now part of the team. You know, when I was going to graduate school, I was focused on me. You know, this was all about me, and especially doing my artwork. That's my art, and I'm doing it. This was a team effort. Now, I made this model, so I obviously improved my model building skills since my crude model of the drums. But I was working with concept designer. He came up with this idea for this parade at Disneyland, and here was the concept. This was one of the floats. You know, so we as a team pulled this off, presented to the executives, sold the idea, and then had to get the real thing built. So this was another example of doing overdress in the park. For our Mardi Gras parade, we had to make models of a part of Main Street, and then we overdressed it, sold the idea. Yes, Lucia.
Did some of your McDonnell Douglas engineering and working with blueprints and everything come into play here?
It did. Blueprint reading in all of this, even to build the models of buildings on Main Street. You had to know how to read the blueprints. You know this. So that's a very good question. You're absolutely right.
Right.
So another example of parade floats that we built, and then this is the real thing, and you know, seeing it on Main Street, you know, in the real. So it's pretty exciting. We did things like this, Festival of Japan. We built this whole structure up in the hub of Disneyland. We did movies premieres. This was for The Return to Oz. It was a film that bombed at the box office, but it was really fun putting together this environment to market this movie that was coming out. We got all the props from the film and all that. We also did the original Tron premiere. We did a similar thing for that. This was at the Hyperion Theater at the Walt Disney Studio lot. So we're getting involved in all sorts of things. We made models for the 1984 Olympics and try to show what the front of the Coliseum was going to look like, and other aspects around that. And one thing that happened throughout the course of all of this, and I put it in my note here, networking. And it's something that you can't say too much about, because networking becomes so important in any career. Throughout the length of the time that I was at the Disneyland Entertainment Art Department, I got very little in terms of pay incentive. We were kind of low on the totem pole, and there was really no room for growth there for me. So, but I met a lot of other people in the entertainment industry. And through meeting those people, especially in TV, I got other freelance work, and I ended up making more money freelancing than I was actually making at my job. Right. You were going to ask another question.
Yeah, well, first of all, this Olympic theme, did they come to Disney?
I don't know the route that came through, because it came down from my boss. It actually came from Claire, so they probably approached Claire, and then from Claire, then the design team got into play, and then we fabricated the models and stuff. So
the other question is the way that again, very organic, the way that this works. And I'm glad you mentioned the pay, because I did look at the pay scale for Imagineering, and it's not as high as people would think. Mm-hmm. But you made the point that what Disney and the Imagineering group and everything, first of all, the networking opportunities, but also it gives you a little bit of prestige in terms of what you can share on your resume to get those freelance jobs and right. to make those connections and to go beyond.
You're right. So this was me, and just to correct one thing you said there, Imagineering was actually, it was at the end of my career. This is the segment Imagineering is the arm of the company that designs and builds the theme parks. The pay there is really pretty darn good. And then by the time I got there, I was at an executive level. So I had moved up, throughout the years. But this job at the Entertainment Art Department was a pretty low level position. So it was starting, it was a foot in the door. And more importantly, as you just pointed out, it was the networking and all the different connections that I made in the process. So one of the people that I had met, Sandy Martin, ran a production company, and her husband, Ed Martin, was a cinematographer, and they were doing TV commercials. And they started giving me freelance work on TV commercials. And they said, you know what, we can keep you in steady work if you want it. And then I had met some art directors that were doing TV sitcoms and doing TV specials. Same thing, they said, but you have to move to LA. You can't do it from Long Beach. So as much as I loved Long Beach, and I take away so much from my time at Long Beach State, I knew that I needed to move to Los Angeles if I was going to stay in that part of the industry. And so I did. I moved to LA, and I started my own company called Larry A Designs. This was in a warehouse downtown, set up in a loft down there before it was fashionable, or any developers had gone in and turned them into really nice lofts. This was a funky old warehouse, and we had 3,000 square feet. I shared it with a partner, and I subdivided it. Now, the good news about all my freelancing is that I was working on TV commercials and stuff, and so I ended up, after the commercials, they would trash a lot of the materials that were used in the commercial, because they was just, a one-time shoot, and then it was gone. And so I took a lot of materials and helped to build out my loft. So for example, this is in progress, but I subdivided the place myself, and I did all these translucent panels so I could get light in during the day. And then I actually had to do plumbing. I put in a hot water tank and a shower, because all they had was a toilet in there so far. And I did a little kitchenette. I did a dark room because I was still doing photography. This was my main studio. And part of the other part of the studio, my sleeping quarters and living room. And these were some of the projects I worked on. This was an HBO special with Gallagher, the comedian, and David Sakharov was the art director. I was hired as assistant art director, helped him to fabricate and install the whole set. And same thing with this. This was a commercial for, it was a Charlie Chaplin skates takeoff for an IBM commercial. And so I got involved in all the set making and stuff like that. So a lot of different things in the Larry Larry Davis world. Now I started doing, I'm still doing my art. And so for my art, I had to be a little smarter about it because I was so busy with other things. So I wanted to do art by management. So I made a model, then I made a full-size mock-up, and I took all these parts and pieces to a glass company, had them make them, brought it back home, and used special glass glues to put them together. Things that I liked about this were the shadows they created. Then I made a few more, and these became hot sellers. So I was selling my art. And then I did this piece, which was, you can see the scale of me laying down there beside it, glass and aluminum, steel base. That's a better picture of the piece. So I was doing my art. Goes back to my biology days. This was my microscope slide series. Usually looking at a microscope slide in the horizontal position. So I took the slide, turned it up vertical, and the stuff that I was looking at through the microscope has now crawled out to the end of the slide. So that's what this is about. I did some in steel, some in aluminum, and some in mixed materials. So again, just very different from my other work. Then I got jobs doing model building again from architectural firms. Got some commissions for furniture. Then this was the coolest thing. One of my students that I taught at Long Beach State in the woodworking class called me up and said he was now working for a company called Martin Brinkerhoff Associates. They were doing a presentation to King Fahd of Saudi Arabia. At that time, it was King Fahd. And their presentations, this was before the digital world, they were all like 35 millimeter slides, and then the whole thing was all put together and captured on a VHS cassette. Then they put the imagery all in a gold embossed photo album. They wanted to present that to the king after the presentation, and they wanted me to make this really exotic box. So I partnered with my friend David Heckerman, who was my studio partner in grad school, and we made a number of these different, this was, I think, box number 2. And then the king decided he wanted to give gifts to a lot of the donors that were, this was all about the renovation of the mosques at Mecca and Medina. And these were multi-billion-dollar things. So all the donors were getting a special box, and in that box was a solid silver miniature of Mecca or Medina. But this is Mecca, actually. And then this is my partner, David, again, and we got an order for 10 more. And every time this is like 5 years worth of work on this Saudi project. We did this wood marquetry, that was for Mecca. And then this is, on the left is Calvin, my student. That's me with the big old mustache. David, my partner, and then on the far right is Marty Brinkerhoff, who owned the company. Now, Marty had seen my artwork and said, hey, I like your work. Would you make me a conference table? So I made Marty a conference table. They said he wanted me to make him a desk, so I made him a desk. Then what happened was, yes.
Yeah, before you jump there, because someone's asked a question about when freelancing, did you take any opportunities that came your way? Or did you try to define the kind of work projects you wanted to be associated with?
Well, a lot of that depended on the time, the need for finance. You know, I had so many things coming in from so many different directions that I couldn't possibly do it all myself. So I took on the things that made the most sense to me. And then the Saudi projects was one that was ongoing. So I kept on going, and it took a lot of my time. And I was still doing my own artwork. But commissions for table pieces like this, I just love doing that kind of stuff. Again, this goes back to, there's McDonnell Douglas all over that one, you know. So, you know.
Yeah, so part of what you do now, are you still doing freelancing? Or
No,
are you very focused on your art?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
So what happened was this was in the late 80s, early 90s. The first recession hit the area, and it wasn't like the Great Recession of 2008, 2009. But it did hit, and a lot of the work was starting to dry up. And then I got a call from some friends who had moved over to an organization called the Disney Store. So they said, hey, do you want to get involved in the Disney Store rollout program? This particular storefront here is in Chicago on Michigan Avenue. So I got involved in flagship like this, but also rollout. We were doing hundreds and hundreds of stores every year. Now I was hiring people to build models for me. And then on the right is the actual piece, and it had to be hung over a guest's head, so it had to be engineered for overhead safety. Blueprint ring, again, turned out to be essential in this entire thing. This is what the store looked like. It was heavily themed. I was responsible for all the interior theming components, getting them designed, fabricated, installed, getting Disney characters sculpted. Again, back to the understanding of mold making and that whole process, getting them into fiberglass, getting them painted. Murals, we had tons of murals. And again, before the digital reign of mass producing these things, these were all hand painted, every one of them. We were doing 200 and 300 stores a year.
So it's Disney, but you weren't working for Disney. You were a freelancer.
Oh no, this
right?
was Disney. I was back at, I had an opportunity to go back to Disney and work for the Disney stores. So just a different branch of the company, but that allowed me also to bridge my service for the years that I had with the entertainment art department. And that was huge because, the time when I was self-employed, I theoretically lost all those early years with Disney and I'd be starting at square one, but I was able to bridge my service and that was a big deal.
That's good to know too.
Yes. So then we became a global partnership. I had partners in Tokyo, in London, in Hong Kong. This was the lower level of the Champs-Élysées in Paris. We did a 30-foot diameter chandelier, all silver leaf with Disney characters, fabricated in Southern California here, and then shipped over, and I oversaw the installation over in Paris. And we did, this is Florence, Italy. This was my paint crew in Florence, Italy. Nobody spoke English, by the way. This was one of the things that I learned with the global partnership. Sometimes I have an interpreter on site, sometimes not, but it was a challenge. Yes.
I'm just going to give you like a 9-minute warning. So.
Okay. Holy cow. Then I might have to, let me stop sharing the screen because we're going to fast forward, okay?
Okay.
Because I want to get to the, let me figure out how to do this.
Sorry.
No, I can't see my cursor on here. That's the problem. I don't know how to do this. No, that's not it. Oops. I'm trying to figure out how to stop sharing. Pause, stop share. There, got it.
Okay.
Okay. Are we not sharing now?
You're not sharing.
Okay. Let me do this. I'm going to go way down because there's a lot of stuff to share, and I'm going to jump straight into Shanghai.
Now you lived there too, didn't you, for a while?
I did. I got to figure out how now to get back to. I have lost my ability to get into the Zoom.
Oh.
I've lost the Zoom.
Ooh.
On my screen, I can't see the Zoom anymore. I can only see which means I can't screen share. Not quite.
That's happened to me before, so don't ask me.
I think I got it. Okay, we're back.
Oh, look for the camera on bottom of screen.
Yeah, now I got it. Okay, so I'm going to fast forward to the Shanghai project because a lot of things happened in between, including some artwork. In fact, what I think I'll do is I'll start. I think there's a couple really important points that I wanted to make. Now, I'll talk through it. And we'll go straight to Shanghai. So what happened was, I'm going to talk through this. I was working, I changed jobs again with Disney a number of different times. And one of the last jobs I had before Imagineering was managing the store development department at Disneyland Resort. And that was redoing shops that hadn't been, retail shops that hadn't been touched for 50 years, and justifying that, working with the finance department saying, hey, the return on your investment will be well worth remodeling the shops. Did all those, and then they were doing the complete reinventing of California Adventure. The whole front entryway was part of it, and which was a lot of retail and restaurants. And then Cars Land, of course, was a part of it, which also had retail. So I was the retail guy now, and I was involved with Imagineering on this project. I wasn't working for Imagineering, I was working for Disneyland Resort, still with Disney. But through that project, I met Bob Weiss. Bob Weiss was president of Walt Disney Imagineering. He liked what he saw. He started talking to me and wanted to know if I'd be interested in this project he had coming down the pike called Shanghai Disneyland. And I said, I would, but I don't want to come in as the retail guy, the merch guy. I want to come in as part of the design development team and be a part of Imagineering. So it took a while for that to all take place, but it did take place. And I eventually joined Imagineering, and then eventually Bob called me back and started on the Shanghai project. So,
oh, Larry, I think the share screen is at the bottom of the screen. Are you having any luck with that?
Yeah, no, I'm going to start sharing now, but I had to get through my keynote, just kind of scroll down because I had like 500 other slides before this, but we're going to get right to the good stuff. Okay.
Yeah, we got like 5 minutes. So.
Okay, boy, this is going to have to be quick. Okay, so here we go.
Great.
Now I'm going to push play. Okay, Shanghai, People's Republic of China. An amazing place, very dense city, beautiful city. I love the juxtaposition of the old and the new side by side, pretty amazing. Of course, I had to, first thing I packed into the shipment to go in here was a set of electronic drums because I knew I was going to get an apartment when I moved there, and I wanted to be able to play my drums. So with this set, I could put the headphones on and play it right in my apartment, staring out at the city. So this is the Shanghai Disneyland site when I first saw it. This is a map well in the works. The quadrant up in the left there with all the activity, that's the main park. Off to the right where it's a little more green, that's the second gate that will be announced down the road. The lake we built, it's a pretty big piece of property. This is me standing in a tower in the middle and looking out at what will be the main entrance. This is me doing a selfie as the steel gets put up. And I'm gonna run this quick video.
Okay.
That was the entry fountain right there that you're looking at. This is us flying through. This is just a portion of my responsibility. The ticket booths are the right and the left. We're going to go up here through the turnstiles, also my responsibility. Stroller rental on the left, the guest services facility on the right. And then we're going to go through the entry portal. This is Dirk flying the drone right there. And the thing that you'll notice, and then this is what would typically be Main Street in a regular park. Here it's Mickey Avenue. It's a whole different look, a completely different design, development, and it includes Disney and Pixar elements. And then the thing that's interesting about this is no people. This was filmed during Chinese New Year. Otherwise, it would be like an ant farm. There'd be thousands and thousands of people. That's the tower I did the selfie from, and we got the castle and then all the other lands splitting out. So then, partner in crime, Jeff, scaffolding. I was all over this place. You just get a sense of the scale. Vendors doing bricks. This is a morning safety meeting. It rained. Sometimes we had typhoon warnings. And when it rained, we had to build structures that continue to work in the rain. This was my summer attire. It was brutally hot. Got real cold and snowed in the winter. This is my winter attire.
Larry, how long did it take to build this?
It was, let's see. The total construction period was probably about 2.5 years.
Wow.
And that included all the infrastructure underground too. So when it was cold, we had to have heaters to heat, we just kept going. Part of my team, entry fountain designs, sculpts, water testing, pumps, just for every small little piece, that's the finished product. Every small little piece represented a lot of detail. The signage had to be English and Chinese, a lot of discussion about that. This is Mickey Avenue, some of the locations, some of the interiors. So you get a sense of the detail, and then standing in a sea of concrete. Theme finishes on even just light fixtures. We had some incredibly talented painters painting flowers on Daisy's Cafe. It's the inside of the cafe. I have to show you this next one because we had a jukebox that had all Disney titles on it except for Hey Hey and My Baby's Gone, the Sound Barrier's first single. On there. Then we did Remy's Patisserie, so we brought Pixar into the equation. I'm kind of just zipping through this so you can get a sense of the level of detail. Plus there's another video I'd like to show. So where are we in terms of the 2-minute warning yet?
Well, we've got a 1-minute warning.
Okay, well, then can I, well, no, because I have the video I wanted to show is 3 minutes, so.
Okay, and maybe we can talk through the video, but your final last words for anyone listening, especially before they come off the talk.
Well, I'll tell you, all of this has transpired through a lot of work by yours truly. Nothing came easily. I had to pay for undergraduate school. I had to pay for graduate school. So and all my artwork, materials, everything, I paid for myself. I learned a lot along the way, as you can see with my, my story, is that each step of the way I learned both engineering things and blueprint reading, the basic tools that I needed, but also, mold making and of course, networking and teamwork. All these things that are just critical to being successful in any career. And what I'm showing now is Club 33, which is, a private 5-star restaurant that we built on the second floor of one of my buildings. So there's a lot to the Disney family. I got to walk the Disney family through the project. And I think probably best to escape only because, and I'll stop sharing. I can figure this one out. Yes, there we go.
Right. Well, I know that I found you your website, which I know you don't use that often, but there's some wonderful examples of your sculpture and your current art. And I want to turn it over to Noemi to let everyone else know how to get a hold of you.
Okay.
I really enjoyed this. I think we all did. It's almost too much to take in.
Yeah, I tried to cut it down to 45 minutes, and it only works at 45 minutes if I just never stop talking, So, but it's important to answer your questions. I mean, that's always part of it. So there's a lot that I didn't get to share, but it's okay. I think the gist of it is there. And again, the fact that it takes a lot of hard work and I think that underneath it all, you have to be willing to work with other people. You have to be, cognizant of, those around you, and don't burn bridges along the way. That's why I kept going back to different divisions of the company, because I made friends along the way who said, hey, there's another opportunity if you're interested. It happened all the time.
Thanks so much, Larry. I'm going to hand it back over to Noemi, okay?
Okay, thank you.
I enjoyed it.
I did too.
Thank you, Lucia. Thank you, Larry, for sharing with us, everything you accomplished at Disney. Before we go, if anyone wants to connect with you, I know you have a LinkedIn page, but would you rather they connect with us and we could connect them with you if you're open to that?
Yeah, that's probably a better way to do it, only because I don't really utilize LinkedIn. So I think better off to have them contact you, and then I'll be happy to communicate with you.
Wonderful. So if anyone wants to connect with Larry, please email us at alumni@csulb.edu and let us know. And thank you again for joining us. Please follow us on our social media channels to learn about future programs like this. Thank you and enjoy your day.
Thank you.
Well, Larry, don't you?
Larry, if you can stay on for a minute.